Hi, everyone. I am really privileged to be here with you guys tonight to wrap up our series on vices and virtues. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about lust and then how we combat that with chastity. And really, this topic kind of like all revolves around one thing, and that's sex. And I think before we do anything else tonight, I want to start this talk with a couple of precursors. Number one, I'm not standing up here as some sort of like authority figure. I'm not here to judge you or shame you for anything that you've done, are doing, or even thinking about doing. I'm really just standing up here as a guy who's legitimately concerned for the direction our culture is going and how hypersexual we're all getting. And number two, throughout the course of the night, I'm going to be sharing bits and pieces of my own story. And while it is very personal to me, by no means am what I'm going to share is it exceptional. There's other people in this room who are struggling with the exact same things. And the things that I'm struggling with are very prevalent all over this campus. But I guess before we get started, too, I should probably introduce myself. My name's Caius Gillen. I'm a junior here at the zoo. I absolutely freaking love this school. I love football, all that. If you guys didn't know, the original homecoming, yeah, it's happening again this Saturday. I hope to see y'all out there. I'll be tailgating, setting the alarm for 5 a.m. We're going to get ready to go. And another great way for you guys to get to know me before we jump in, I thought I would share my deepest, darkest secret with you guys, and also my biggest dream in life. So first, my deepest, darkest secret is that, honestly, I cannot tell you guys the last time when there was a whole pizza sitting in front of me that I didn't just straight up eat the whole thing. I love Jack's frozen pizzas, Walmart, $2.98. Slap a little ranch on that, and we can be best friends. And now to my biggest dream in life. My biggest desire right now is to live in the trashiest, trappiest house on East Campus for my senior year. So if you're interested in living on East Campus with me next year, come see me in the back after the talk. And to be real with you guys, I haven't had to do any public speaking since my freshman year. I don't know if y'all took Com 1200 public speaking. So I really went back through my notes in that notebook to figure out how to give a talk. And they said that one of the most important things about convincing your audience is to establish credibility. And one of the best ways to establish credibility is by claiming that you have expertise in the topic. So yeah, I've had sex before. And maybe that was really awkward for you guys to hear that, but it's probably more awkward for anyone who's going to see this at home. Hey, Mom and Dad. Thanksgiving's going to be a lot of fun this year. The turkey's still going to be great, and I have no doubts my parents still love me like a whole lot. So without further ado, let's get this party started, y'all. So lust. What is lust? The Catechism defines lust as a disordered desire for our inordinate enjoyment of sexual pleasure. Sexual pleasure is morally disordered when sought for itself, isolated from procreative and unitive purposes. So what that's really saying is, while the desires and the pleasures associated with sex in themselves are inherently great things and gifts from God, it's when we seek that pleasure, this pleasure solely for our own benefit that our desires become disoriented and we start to engage in the sin of lust. And on this college campus, I've identified probably the top 3 ways that the devil is going to try to get us to lust. And those are porn and masturbation, the hookup culture, and even if you're in a committed relationship with a significant other, he's coming after you. So junior high was a pretty interesting time for me. And I think my experience can be summed up really well in the words of my favorite musical performer, Chance the Rapper. In his song Juke Jam, he says, "This is the time when I found out that shorties with cooties were cute, and when I found out what booties could do." So in the 7th grade, I really realized that I was attracted to women. And so I started asking out all these girls on dates. I probably broke the record at my junior high for most girls asked out, and also most girls who turned me down. So what this caused me to do, to seek satisfaction that I was desiring, is I turned to pornography. And I've been hooked on pornography for a really long time, really the last 6 years of my life. And for the longest time, I said, it's just porn and masturbation. It's not a big deal. It's no big deal at all. It's just me. I'm not harming anybody. But really, I've realized how wrong that was. And Audrey Assad, who has the most beautiful voice ever, she's a Catholic convert, awesome singer. She said, practically, when you look at masturbation, it is in fact the soul leaving the body. It divorces our life-giving ability from our body and separates us from what we were truly created for. So while I thought that masturbation was no big deal, I also thought porn was no big deal as well. But then I stumbled upon this website called Fight the New Drug, and I found some pretty interesting facts. So first and foremost, 86% of men and 31% of women report watching porn at least once a month. And I think the most important part of this fact is the 31% of women. Often when we talk about these things, women get completely left out of the conversation, and we act like it isn't a problem that they're going through too, which I'm really frustrated with, honestly, and I just want all the ladies in the room to know that you're not alone. Other women are going through this, and we need to do a better job of acknowledging that. On to our next stat. 4.3 billion hours of porn were watched on one site in 2013, which is the equivalent of 500,000 years worth of porn. And if y'all don't know, I don't know how long we've been around as a species, but not very long. Also, porn has been streamed more than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. So I think it's clear to say that porn's being watched a lot. And why is this a big deal? It may be surprising to some of you, but porn operates very similarly to nicotine and alcohol and the fact that it is an addictive substance. Studies have shown that porn stimulates the same areas of the brain as addictive drugs and makes the brain release those exact same chemicals. And just like drugs, porn triggers pathways in the brain that cause craving, leading users for more and more extreme hits to get the high that they need. So it really is something that you can become addicted to. It can ensnare you in your daily life. And I know that this is something that I still actively struggle with. But while you may not care about me personally and my struggle, it really affects a lot of people in a lot of different negative ways. Porn has been linked to increases in erectile dysfunction, increases in eating disorders in both sexes, depression, and earlier sexual debuts for both boys and girls. And personally for me, the main way that I've negatively been affected by pornography is that by viewing these very glorified men and women engaging in these sexual acts, I early on in my addiction came to the conclusion that I wasn't able to have sex because I wasn't as good looking as the people in these videos. I've struggled deeply with body image issues ever since middle school, and I can't confidently tell you any time that I stand in front of a mirror, even today, that I love the person that I look at. And while you may not care about that in my individual struggle, you might care about marriage. So a study done by the American Legion of Divorce Lawyers, which is actually a secular group of the top 1,600 divorce lawyers in the nation, they did a study, and in the last 8 years, 56% of divorced couples reported that at least one person was addicted to pornography. Looking at that stat, I don't think we can deny that porn is a very big part in playing a very big part in breaking up families. Maybe you don't care about marriage. Maybe you don't feel like that's what you're called to. But maybe you care about kids. So this is a picture of my brother and sister, Garrett and Joanna. Joanna's 9 years old. She's awesome. Garrett's 12. He's super cool too. They're like the cutest kids of all time, especially Garrett. He spent his spring break with me last year, and let me tell you, like, taking a 12-year-old kid to Shiloh is like one of the best things you can ever do in your life. But why did I put up a picture of my little brother and sister? The average first exposure age to pornography right now is 11 years old, and the porn industry is placing an ever-increasing effort on making actors to look younger to appeal to younger audiences. I don't know about you guys, but the fact that my 12-year-old brother may have already seen pornography absolutely disturbs me and disgusts me. And I think it's time to ask ourselves, do we want that for our own brother or sister? And what about our future children? But maybe kids aren't your thing. I mean, not everyone likes kids, I recognize that. But maybe you care about women. So 88% of scenes depict actions of aggression or violence towards women. Countless psychological studies have been done that show that viewing violent behavior actually increases your chance in partaking in that same violent behavior. And as we saw about those viewership numbers earlier, porn is clearly making its way into the lives of families across this country. And we also have a huge domestic violence problem, yet we're seeking some answer for that. And I think porn plays a huge part. But maybe you don't care about women either. Maybe you care about the world. Both the Department of Justice and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children recognize that the increase in the porn industry has also there's a direct correlation in the rampant rise of human sex trafficking. This is a direct quote from the Fight the New Drug website. Nearly half of sex trafficking victims report that pornography was made of them while they were in bondage. The victim is not going to turn to the camera and announce that they are being trafficked. And these images and videos make their way onto mainstream porn sites where they are indistinguishable. In fact, even if the victim does register their distress, it's still impossible to know because rape and abuse-themed porn have now become mainstream. One female survivor, whose captors slept on top of her at night so she wouldn't escape, watched her through a hole when she went to the bathroom, and listened to her phone calls with a gun pointed at her head, was forced to appear in a video that made the Sinclair Intimacy Institute's list of sex-positive productions. She was quoted on this and says, "Every time someone watches that film," she said, "they are watching me being raped." So yeah, guys, porn sucks. But the difficult thing about it is when we're all looking for this moment of pleasure, it's really blurred and we don't see these things for what it is. And it's just really easy as we're sitting here in this room tonight to objectively say that porn is really ruining things. But it takes a whole nother level of self-reflection to look and say, am I ready to sacrifice this small amount of pleasure for all these big things that are happening in the world? So porn is a huge deal. Something else that I've been told is no big deal, and is the second point that the devil is going to try to attack us while we're in college, is the hookup culture that we live in. Which on the outside looking in, it actually sounds really, really cool. Who wouldn't want to have sex in exchange this awesome thing with no consequences? But the fact of the matter is, this no strings attached idea we have about hooking up is actually scientifically impossible. So there's these chemicals in your brain called dopamine and oxytocin. Dopamine, first and foremost, is this thing that really pops up and floods your brain anytime anything good happens. So whether that's you did good on a test, or you had an awesome flag football game last night, which I did, or if you're having sex, dopamine's going to flood your brain no matter who you're having sex with. And oxytocin is even more strong in destroying this idea that there are no strings attached. Oxytocin is a chemical that floods your brain and is often referred to as the love chemical. Oxytocin is really important for fostering bonding between people. And honestly, I can recognize times in my life when these chemicals have flooded my brain. And honestly, I can't think of a single time that I've hooked up with a girl that the next day or later on I didn't have a million questions and a million feelings and wonder like why this happened, what she thinks about me, all that. And the fact of the matter is, it got to the point where I was having these questions and these feelings, and it was a really big struggle that I started to actively suppress them. And to this day, intimacy and physical touch, especially with the opposite sex, are incredibly difficult for me. But like I said, maybe you don't really care about me and my struggle. So let's look at this quote. The opposite of love is not hate. When you hate someone, at the very least, they are still themselves. The opposite of love is use, because you reduce the person to a means to an end. And in the case of sex, this end is pleasure. So when we seek out just this good feeling, part of someone's body, we've really just reduced them to an object. And when you reduce someone to an object and you see them as this means to an end, what ironically happens is you start to view yourself as the same thing. And honestly, in my most recent hookup, which was just actually this summer, for the first time this came full circle to me, and at no point while I was having sex did I feel like a real person. I just felt like a tool as I was being used to help someone orgasm. And I think it's gotten even more prevalent. Just think about the language we use in everyday life and the things you hear some people say. I hear guys, more guys than girls, but we say things like, I'd get with that, or I'd hit that, or let me get some of that. And linguistically, that is a word, that's an object pronoun. So we've gotten to the point where our culture is so strong in this that we've ingrained in our very own language the idea that sex is about objectification. And when it's this deeply ingrained in our brains, it's a really big deal. But you might be sitting out there saying, well, I don't struggle with porn and masturbation. I don't hook up on the weekends. I actually just really have this awesome significant other. So I can't fall into lust. But you can. So you might be out there having somebody that you really feel that you're in love with, and I can't pretend to know what that feels like. I really can't. But I think a lot of times people fall into this trap and this idea that, all right, I love this person. I want to give them my everything. But really, it should wait for marriage. In the church, actually, we don't say not to have sex before marriage because it's arbitrarily wrong. We actually encourage waiting to have sex until after marriage because it allows us to more fully participate in God's plan for our love, which includes procreation. And that's where I kind of come back to this idea of giving someone your everything. If you're going to give them your body and this very special part of you, there's a lot of other things you should be willing to give them as well. Maybe emotional support, maybe a wedding ring, maybe the key to your house, maybe the PIN code to your bank account, and maybe your fertility. Honestly, when I think about this, every time I think about people engaging in sex with contraception, and I've done this many times in my life before, I felt like it was a direct way of someone saying to me that I wasn't ready to be a father. I don't want you to be the father of my children. Which is true, I'm not ready to be a father, but when we do this with someone we're in love with, I think it cuts an even deeper wound. And if you're confident in your relationship that this is the person to marry, that the person you're with is the one you're going to marry, still you should not have sex with them, and this is based on a statistic. So 96% of couples who wait to have sex with their married spouse, they're going to remain in that marriage for the rest of their lives. This number reduces to 80% for couples who sleep with one person before their spouse. And this number dips down to 50% of couples who sleep with multiple partners before they sleep with their spouse. And that's just a really alarming statistic to me because I fall on the really low end of those odds. The idea that me spending the rest of my life with my wife is dependent on the flip of a coin just really scares the crap out of me. So all three of these things are a big deal. Porn and masturbation, hookup culture, and lust within a committed relationship. But the good news is that we do have a choice. And St. John Paul II explains that to us perfectly. A cat in heat does not reflect on what is the best time, place, or circumstance to mate, and they do not ponder what would make an ideal partner. Cats act reflexively according to their instincts. Humans, however, are fundamentally different than all other animals. They do not have to be enslaved to what is happening to them in the sexual sphere. In the end, a person is in control of the sexual urge, not the sexual urge in control of the person. Which is like really freaking awesome, guys, that we actually have a choice. And Catherine, who's also kind of a psych nerd, helped explain this last week. And God actually created us with a larger prefrontal cortex that gives us the ability to discern right and wrong and to choose for ourselves. And this is where I would encourage us to choose chastity. And I recognize that chastity is like a huge trigger word in today's culture. Most people associate that with like these like crazy like medieval-looking belt things and like these locks. But really, chastity isn't actually about abstinence. And while, yeah, I was advocating that we abstain to these things, chastity is about so much more. Because the fact of the matter is, like, once you're married, you don't actually have to abstain from sex. So it's not about saying no. It's actually just really on when you're married. But chastity can become an even more powerful thing. And instead of being no, it can be a big hell yeah to the way that God wants you to experience his love in its fullness through sex with your partner. So here's a really beautiful quote for you guys. This is from the book By Way of the Heart. Chastity seeks to produce lives that are noticeably marked by love. Sexuality and its physical expressions can link us to others in ways that bring understanding and sensitivity, warmth and acceptance, compassion and mutual support. We should not fear sexuality, but embrace it. So there's a couple of these lines are underlined on the board. First, chastity seeks to produce lives that are noticeably marked by love. And when I think about this concept of chastity, I really get this image in my head of two old people sitting in the park together, a grandma and a grandpa, just on a bench. You know, maybe they have some food, maybe they're feeding the birds, maybe they're holding hands. But the fact of the matter is, like, this old couple that's pursued chastity and stuck together for so long, every single person who walks by them in that park can noticeably see that they are in love with each other, which is incredible and something that I want. And this last underline says, we should not fear sexuality, but embrace it. Maybe this comes as a surprise to you, but the Catholic Church actually freaking loves sexuality. I know you may have been told something different as a child, but here I am telling you this. So what is sexuality? The sexual urge is meant to draw us not simply toward the body, but the body of a person. Hence, an initial sexual reaction is meant to orient us toward personal communion, not just bodily union. It can serve as an ingredient of authentic love if it is integrated with the higher, nobler aspects of love, such as goodwill, friendship, virtue, or self-giving commitment. So good news that sexual attraction inherently is not a bad thing, mainly because I'm not going to lie to you guys, like I walk around on this campus every single day and like I'm like, holy cow, there's a lot of beautiful women out here. And I kind of freak out and like, but like that's so awesome that God lets me appreciate this beauty. And really like what that is, it's God's way of saying like, hey, maybe you should go talk to that person. Hey, maybe y'all could be friends. Hey, maybe you should get to know this person on a personal level. And hey, maybe this is someone you could even end up dating or marrying. So sexual attraction itself is such a beautiful, beautiful gift. All right, give me a sec. Also, some practicality within chastity. So you may be wondering, like, okay, this is starting to sound like kind of cool. Maybe I should pursue this. So what does a chaste act look like? The best thing I can say is that any act in the sexual realm should first be met with the greater responsibility for the well-being of one's personhood. So when you increase in physicality with your partner, this is such an awesome gift from God, because this increase in physicality is going to make you feel more attracted to each other and more connected to each other. But whatever this act is, whether that's holding hands, or maybe you're going to make out, or maybe share a long cuddle session, whatever that is, the first thing that should happen after this act is committed is you should feel a greater sense of responsibility for that person's heart, and you've been endowed to protect it. Another practical way that chastity can be defined and that we can start to pursue is that any act that moves from an act of affection to that of a sexual response. So really, like, whenever you're doing something with your partner, you're going to be thinking a lot of things in your head, and you're probably going to be thinking, like, wow, this person is so awesome. But as soon as you're in the middle of this act and you start to move to this idea of, like, wow, this feels awesome, that's when you start to really tightrope the fine line that is chastity. All right, and we're probably still kind of confused about what chastity is a little bit, so I'm going to pull up two of my favorite Bible verses and really explain what chastity means to me. The first one is Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So literally, the last day of creation, God decides to put man and woman on the planet because it was the most important thing. The fact of the matter is that, like, God gave us all to each other here today even as gifts so we could properly see him. Which brings me to my second Bible verse, which is Matthew 5, chapter 8. This has been my favorite Bible verse for like a super long time. That's not actually the verse up on the board, but I haven't memorized, so no worries. I'm probably going to get it tattooed on myself. On my birthday, which is February 13th, I'm turning 21. Y'all should come out for that. But yeah, Matthew 5, chapter 8 says, "Blessed are the clean of heart, for they will see God." And really, us being here together in God's creation of man and woman is really his gift to us, and it's such an awesome opportunity for us to see him in each other every single day. And chastity and the pursuit of it is really the lens that we can use to see God in everyone that we encounter in our daily lives. So yeah, these are some like pretty like cool things, I think anyways, and maybe we want to start pursuing them. So I'm going to give you some of my best practical advice in pursuing chastity in the past year, really. And the first thing I can say to you is, if you don't want to slip, stay away from slippery places. And what does that look like? It looks like something different for every person. But two of the ways that I've experienced it myself are, don't go out to the bar and like have a bunch of drinks if you know there's a good chance you're going to end up making out with somebody and then going home with them. But also on the same note, don't stay over at your boyfriend or girlfriend's house until like 2 a.m. When you know you're going to get tired and end up having to spend the night with them and then leaving whatever else happens up to chance. But for me personally, the best way that I've learned to pursue chastity is actually through Saints Mary and Saint Joseph. And I could give like a whole like another talk about how awesome they are as a couple. I really hate the word goals. Like I hate that whole like goals movement, but like they are goals, guys. Like they are freaking awesome. First of all, you have Mary, who's like, I mean, literally she had Jesus as a kid. Like, do I need to say a whole lot else about that? I can't imagine how beautiful she was, and I really don't think I could probably handle it myself. So I'm grateful that God gave her this guy named Joseph. Joseph was pretty much just this like average dude, and then God was like, yeah, do you want to be the adopted father of Jesus? And he was like, I guess. Which is like such a huge thing to have to do. And he also was entrusted with the Virgin Mary. And I don't know about you guys, but like I imagine Mary as being the most beautiful person ever. And we also recognize there's the Queen of Heaven and Earth. So for St. Joseph, I can imagine it was kind of probably difficult for him to be chaste with her. So I've really like learned to identify myself with St. Joseph, and I pray with him a lot in pursuit of like becoming a better man, and just thinking about like the sacrifices he laid down. I mean, like he literally like scooped his family up in the middle of the night to run away to Egypt to protect our baby Jesus. But maybe you're like not on that level where you're trying to like pray with the saints, or maybe you like don't even think that's a thing. So here's some like really awesome ways that you can start pursuing chastity, especially in the realm of resisting porn and masturbation. So these apps that I use on my cell phone, this is the Covenant Eyes app. The way the app works is that it basically takes the Safari off of your device or like your web browser and replaces it with this. It operates the exact same way, so you can still search like whatever you want. But the kicker is that whenever you search something in the realm of porn or like explicitness, it's going to get sent to your accountability partners. And I know this app has helped me out a lot with resisting porn. Like there's zero part of me that wants to know like hey Dylan Heeb, I'm watching porn. Like I know it's really helped me a lot in resisting those temptations, because I don't really like when Dylan gets an email that says, hey, your boy's been watching porn. And there's also some other great apps. I mean, I could go on about porn apps for days, but we'll get to a couple more. This is the Fight the New Drug Fighter app. And the way this app works is it's a self-report app. So every single day, I think you have to wait till after like 9 o'clock. Yeah. Anyways, every single day you're required to record either a victory or a setback. And when you string like a lot of victories together, you get like these medals pop up on your screen, and like you can like really celebrate because truly every day like is a big victory, guys. Like this isn't something you just like escape and like or like liberated from forever. It's an everyday battle. But on the same note, when you record a setback on this app, like it asks you some pretty big questions. It asks where you were when you decided to watch porn. It asks what device you used to watch that porn. It asks what time of day it was. And kind of the most important thing, I think, when using this app is it asks you how you were feeling right before you decided to use porn. And the last app, this is called the R Tribe app, which is a pretty cool one too. So it works in a similar fashion to Fight the New Drug, in the sense that it is a daily self-report app, but you also like join a tribe of people, and you have a feed, and every single day it gives you like a question or a prompt. It's basically like a reflection question. It's usually pretty good and like light, and it gets you to think about God and like how awesome He is and how awesome you are and how much He loves you, which is like a really powerful way to help you resist using pornography. I actively use all three of these apps, and I think it's important to recognize the most important like aspect and the thing that all three of these apps like undoubtedly share, and that's accountability. The fact of the matter is like we can't improve, especially in the realm of chastity, if we don't have somebody like upholding us and like pushing us towards these values. I don't know, maybe you don't have a smartphone though, so I've got a couple other little pieces of practical advice for you. And these are like really the simplest and smallest ways in my daily life that I've learned to pursue chastity. And first and foremost, I would say like take interest in all people, regardless of relationship status. If you see like someone's like got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you're like, oh, like I can't be romantically involved with that person, so I probably shouldn't get to know them like on a deep level or like get to know them very well. Like we can just kind of be friends. You're already coming in kind of with like this selfish attitude that you're seeking someone out for something more than just the fact that they're an awesome person. And I would say that the second practical way in my life that I've learned to pursue chastity is not to just seek out conversation and friendship with people that I'm attracted to. And I think this is a really powerful way because when we see all of God's creation with a certain light of beauty, we really reinforce the idea that we're all God's children, sons and daughters, beloved. And it really, that's the key ingredient, this identity in Jesus and in God, that really allows us to be comfortable with ourselves and comfortable in pursuing someone and chastity. And maybe you're sitting out there still tonight. I know I would have been doing the same thing a year ago, saying, okay, dude, this all sounds really awesome, but I'm in college. Who cares, dude? It's just 4 years. We're supposed to come here, have fun, experiment, all that jazz. But what's another reason that we're in college, right? We're all here to get to degrees. So if you're studying to be a doctor, could you please raise your hand real quick? Shout out the doctors, that's amazing. If you're studying to be an accountant, please raise your hand. Got some accountants in the room. If you're studying to be an engineer, please raise your hand. Lots of engineers, wow. What about a teacher? Now I imagine all of you guys take your studies super seriously because you have this vocation to your profession, and you really want to be the best that you can be at your career, right? But the ironic thing is you have another vocation in life, and for most of us in this room, that's probably to get married. But I don't feel like a lot of us are studying and preparing for that as much. Which really brings me to this quote from Pope Francis, my guy. And he says, "So goes marriage, so goes the world." And the fact of the matter is that marriages are breaking down for multiple reasons, but a lot of that is because we can't rest in the idea that we're sons and daughters of Christ. And really, we fail to pursue this idea in college. And I just kind of want to leave you guys with this concept. And it's called The Altar Switch by Sarah Swafford. And it's the idea that we all have this idea that no matter what we're doing right now, the day you get married, the day you put the ring on, the day you say I do, you're going to fundamentally change as a person. And you're going to be the exact spouse that you're supposed to be. You're going to be the father and mother that you're supposed to be, magically, just because you decided to get married. Which is honestly a load of crap and one of the biggest lies that we're being told. The fact of the matter is that the husband or wife and the mother or the father that you're going to be for the rest of your life is directly impacted by the decisions we're making and the persons that we're pursuing being right now. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to think that this is my pinnacle. I really want to be a better person when I'm 70 than when I'm 20. And more than anything, the deepest desire in my entire heart is to be more in love with my spouse when I'm 75 than when I'm 25. And I think that's what chastity is all about. Thank you.